The green room backstage at The View was buzzing with anticipation. Harrison Ford, the iconic actor known for his roles in Star Wars, Indiana Jones, and countless other blockbusters, was set to appear on the show to promote his latest project. But as the minutes ticked down to showtime, there was a palpable undercurrent of tension in the air. Ford, known for his straightforward, no-nonsense demeanor, had made it clear to the producers that he was here to discuss his work, not to get drawn into political debates or celebrity gossip. But the hosts of The View, always eager for a headline-grabbing moment, had their own agenda. As Ford was mic'd up and led to the stage, he could feel the energy shift. The studio audience, primed for drama, seemed to lean forward in their seats as he took his place at the table. Whoopi Goldberg, the show's moderator, kicked things off with a warm welcome. "Harrison, it's such an honor to have you here," she said, smiling broadly. "We've been looking forward to this for a long time." Ford nodded, his expression guarded. "Thanks for having me," he said, his voice gruff but polite. Joy Behar, never one to beat around the bush, jumped right in. "So, Harrison," she said, a mischievous glint in her eye, "you've been in this business for a long time. You've seen a lot of changes. What do you make of the way things are now, with celebrities getting so involved in politics?" Ford paused, choosing his words carefully. "I think," he said slowly, "that everyone has a right to their opinions. But I'm not sure it's my place, as an actor, to be telling people what to think." Sunny Hostin leaned forward, her brow furrowed. "But don't you think, with your platform, you have a responsibility to speak out? To use your voice for change?" Ford's jaw tightened. "I use my voice in my work," he said, his tone growing more clipped, "in the stories I choose to tell. But I'm not here to lecture anyone." There was a beat of uncomfortable silence. The hosts exchanged glances, sensing that they had touched a nerve, but they weren't ready to let it go. Over the next several minutes, they peppered Ford with questions about his views on everything from the Me Too movement to the upcoming election. His answers grew terser, his body language more closed off. Meghan McCain, sensing an opportunity, pressed him on a particularly sensitive topic: the recent controversial tweets by one of his co-stars. "Don't you feel," she asked, her voice dripping with righteous indignation, "that you have a responsibility to denounce that kind of language?" Ford's eyes flashed. He leaned forward, his voice low and intense. "Let me be clear," he said, each word deliberate and sharp. "I deplore hate speech in all its forms. But I'm not here to answer for anyone else's words or actions." Ana Navarro, never one to back down from a fight, jumped in. "But Harrison," she said, her tone almost pleading, "you have such a powerful voice. Don't you think you could make a real difference if you spoke out more?" Ford's patience, already worn thin, snapped. He stood up abruptly, yanking the microphone from his lapel. The hosts looked stunned. The audience gasped. "I'm done with this," Ford said, his voice tight with anger. "I came here to talk about my work, about my craft. But all you seem interested in is turning me into some kind of political pundit. Well, I'm not playing that game." He turned to leave, but Whoopi Goldberg tried to stop him. "Harrison, wait," she said, half rising from her seat. "We didn't mean to upset you. Please, sit back down." But Ford was already striding off the stage, his jaw set, his eyes blazing. As he disappeared into the wings, a stunned silence fell over the studio. Backstage, Ford's publicist rushed up to him, her face etched with concern. "Harrison, what happened out there? Are you all right?" Ford shook his head, his anger still simmering. "I'm fine," he said, his voice tight. "But I'm not going to sit there and be ambushed with loaded questions. That's not what I signed up for." In the days that followed, the clip of Ford's walkout went viral. Social media exploded with hot takes and think pieces, everyone rushing to weigh in on the drama. Some praised Ford for refusing to be drawn into the political circus, for standing up to what they saw as a clear case of media overreach. They applauded him for staying true to himself, for refusing to be just another celebrity mouthpiece. Others, though, were quick to criticize. They accused Ford of being thin-skinned, of shirking his responsibilities as a public figure. They argued that with great fame comes great obligation, and that by refusing to engage on the issues of the day, he was abdicating his moral duty. But for Ford, it wasn't about any of that. It was about integrity, about authenticity. It was about staying true to himself in an industry that was always trying to put people in boxes, to reduce them to sound bites and hashtags. He knew that walking off that stage would have consequences. He knew that some would see it as a tantrum, as an ego run amok. But he also knew that sometimes, the only way to win was to refuse to play the game. In the weeks that followed, as the furor died down and the news cycle moved on, Ford threw himself back into his work. He showed up on set every day, ready to give his all, ready to lose himself in the stories he loved. And if sometimes, in the quiet moments between takes, his mind drifted back to that day on The View, to the anger and the frustration and the sense of being utterly misunderstood, well, he tried not to dwell on it. Because at the end of the day, Harrison Ford knew who he was. He was an actor, a storyteller, a craftsman. He was a man who had built a career on being authentic, on bringing truth and humanity to every role he played. And no talk show ambush, no matter how heated, was going to change that. As the years went by, Ford's walkout became a thing of legend, a moment that was dissected and analyzed and mythologized. Some saw it as a turning point, a watershed moment when the old guard of Hollywood stood up to the new realities of celebrity culture. Others saw it as a cautionary tale, a reminder of the perils of speaking truth to power in an age of instant outrage and viral backlash. But for Ford himself, it was simply a moment of clarity, a moment when he had been forced to choose between being true to himself and playing the role that others wanted him to play. And he had chosen himself. He had chosen his craft, his integrity, his authenticity. He had chosen to walk away. And in doing so, he had sent a message that would reverberate through the industry for years to come, a message that said, in no uncertain terms, that Harrison Ford was not a man to be trifled with. He was not a puppet to be manipulated, not a soundbite to be extracted. He was an artist, a legend, a force of nature. And he would always stay true to himself, no matter the cost. As Ford looked back on that day, on that moment of decision, he knew that he had made the right choice. He knew that by walking off that stage, he had set a precedent, had drawn a line in the sand. He had shown the world that even in the face of immense pressure, even in the glare of the spotlights and the roar of the crowd, he would never compromise his principles. He would never sell out. He would never be anyone but himself. And that, in the end, was the greatest role he could ever play. The role of Harrison Ford, the man, the myth, the legend. The man who had looked the machine of celebrity culture in the eye and said, without fear or hesitation, I'm done with this. And meant it, with every fiber of his being.